Watchman of the Lake. A dramatic tale of duty and divinity. In this captivating performance of R.K. Narayan's Watchman of the Lake, witness the poignant journey of Mara, the Watchman of Ayyankere Lake, as he navigates the challenges of duty, the wisdom of the goddess, and the relationship between man and nature. At the foot of the Baba Budan Hills, in the small village of Sakrapatna, a group of road menders work tirelessly under the watchful eye of the village headman. The air is thick with dust as shovels hit the hard earth, and the distant hum of cattle fills the atmosphere. The headman, pacing impatiently, scolds the workers, for the king is to pass through this village tomorrow. Time is running short, and the road must be ready. But the workers' laughter betrays their distraction, for something or someone has caught their attention. Among the rocks and trees at the edge of the village, a mysterious figure appears. Mara. His wild hair and ragged clothes suggest a man out of place, but there is something in his eyes, a strange calm, an otherworldly conviction. The workers whisper nervously. They have seen him before, and they know he brings strange omens with him. The headman's temper rises as Mara's presence disturbs the delicate preparations for the king's arrival. The headman confronts Mara, his anger barely contained. "What are you doing here, you fool?" he demands, his voice filled with scorn. But Mara, undeterred, speaks calmly. He claims he is here on his own business, that he has a mission of his own. The headman scoffs, dismissing Mara as a madman, a lunatic who must stay out of sight, especially with the king coming. But Mara's words are resolute. He is not swayed by the headman's threats. At the headman's command, the workmen scatter. They run across the dry earth, calling out to each other, searching for Mara. He is quick, like a deer, vanishing into the hills. The men climb over rocks, weave through trees, determined to catch him. And then there he is. Dragged back to the village, Mara stands once more before the headman. But there is no fear in his eyes, only a quiet certainty. The headman is furious. Mara stands before the headman once again, surrounded by the village workmen. His wrists are bound, but his spirit remains free. The headman's voice rises, filled with frustration. "I told you to stay away," he yells. But Mara, unflinching, responds with the same calm demeanor. He speaks of dreams, of messages from the goddess of the river. The headman scoffs, dismissing Mara's words as madness. He orders Bhima, the giant, to take Mara away, to lock him in the cellar until the king has passed. As the headman rages, Mara remains composed. His words are gentle, but filled with conviction. He is not afraid of the headman's threats. The workers, still and silent, watch in awe as Mara speaks. There is something about him that holds their attention, something beyond the ordinary. The headman, desperate to maintain control, grows more furious with each passing moment. But Mara remains unmoved. Enter Bhima, the giant. Towering over Mara, Bhima is a man of immense strength, capable of crushing stone with his bare hands. His arms, thick as tree trunks, are ready to carry out the headman's orders. "Bind him," the headman commands. Bhima obliges, but as he ties Mara's hands, Mara looks up at him with a curious smile. "How did you grow so strong?" he asks. Bhima, momentarily caught off guard, replies with pride, "My mother gave me iron decoctions as a baby, and I carry stones up the hill every day." The workers laugh, but the headman is in no mood for jokes. Bhima leads Mara away towards the old crumbling temple at the edge of the village. Mara walks willingly, his hands still bound but his spirit unbroken. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows across the dusty path. The workers, now silent, watch as Mara disappears into the distance. What does he know that they do not? The headman watches too, his anger simmering, but beneath it all, a seed of doubt has been planted. Mara's words linger in the air. The king is coming. Tell him about the tank. He will listen. At the foothills of Baba Budan, the village bustles with anticipation. The king has arrived, adorned in royal splendor atop a grand elephant. The villagers, brimming with excitement, cheer softly in reverence, honoring the dignity of their ruler. His face is serene, yet commanding, his presence a testament to his power and grace. Dust rises with each step of the elephant, adding to the grandeur of the moment as the king passes through the village, his eyes surveying the humble surroundings. Suddenly, chaos breaks out. A man, dusty and disheveled, leaps from the branches of a tall tree. It's Mara, an unknown figure wrapped in rags. The crowd gasps, bewildered. Voices rise in confusion. Who is he? Where did he jump from? Even the king's elephant halts, alert. Mara stands unflinchingly, his expression determined, as if he has a vital message to deliver. The king raises his hand, commanding silence. Quiet! Bring him to me. The king's hand rises and instantly, silence falls. The soldiers seize Mara and drag him before the king. His clothes are torn, but his eyes hold a quiet resolve. The king looks at him intently, his gaze piercing. Who are you and where did you come from? Mara, bowing with respect, responds, Your Majesty, I am but a lowly man, yet I have a message of great importance for your ears. Mara's voice trembles with urgency and reverence. Your Majesty, I had a vision. In my dream, the goddess herself commanded me to deliver a message. This land where you now stand is sacred. It is blessed by the waters of the Veda, which flow from the very spot where Hanuman once stood. But in the scorching summer, the waters dry up and the people of this village suffer. The goddess has asked that you build a tank to preserve this life-giving water, to protect the people from drought. The king listens, his expression serious, absorbing the weight of Mara's words. Mara's eyes light up as he recounts the vision. Your Majesty, the goddess herself appeared before me. She was magnificent. A crown of stars rested upon her head, and a ruby, large as the eye of your elephant, adorned her forehead. Her garment shimmered like lightning, and she stood at the peak of the sacred mountain. She told me that the river Veda is her cherished creation, carrying nectar that sustains both gods and mortals. But in the summer, when it retreats to the cool mountain glades, the village faces drought. The goddess has commanded that you build a tank to give the river a home, so it may nourish the land forever. The king is silent, contemplating Mara's words. His face is stern yet thoughtful. He speaks. You carry the grace of the gods within you. Your words hold great wisdom. When we return tomorrow, you will accompany us to the capital. Mara, hesitant, replies, Your Majesty, I am but a madman, clothed in rags. How can I accompany you to the capital? The king's voice is firm. Our command is clear. Bowing his head, Mara answers, I shall obey. Mara stands at the edge of the vast lake, his weathered face reflecting years of wisdom and care. The tranquil waters glisten under the sunlight, while a gentle breeze rustles the leaves of nearby trees. With a voice filled with warmth, he calls out, Boy, little man, Ganga, Ganga! His tone is affectionate yet firm, resonating with the calmness of the serene landscape around him. From behind a tall tree, Ganga appears, his youthful spirit shining through. Father, I am coming, he shouts back, his voice echoing with excitement. What are you shouting about? As he races towards Mara, his innocent curiosity is palpable. The laughter of children can be heard faintly in the background, blending with the sounds of nature. Mara's expression shifts as he sees a man fishing by the lake, his demeanor turning stern. Hey man, get up! What are you doing here? He demands, his voice authoritative. The fisherman, caught off guard, looks up nervously, clutching his fishing rod and basket of fish. "Nothing," he stammers, but Mara isn't convinced. "I have been the watchman of this lake for years. I will not let you harm its creatures. If I see you again with that rod and hook, I will push you into the water and the fish will feast upon you." His warning hangs in the air like a thunderclap, echoing his deep connection to this sacred place. "I am the master of this place, appointed by the king. This lake provides life to our fields, and I have given it a home. You must respect that." The fisherman looks around nervously, sensing the weight of Mara's words. The lush greenery around them seems to agree with Mara's declaration, reinforcing the importance of their surroundings. A visitor arrives, weary from his journey, with desperation etched on his face. "Mara, oh brother, when did you come?" he asks, his voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Mara invites him warmly. "Come into my hut and have some food. There's bound to be something you can munch, though nothing very good. My wife is away." The atmosphere shifts to one of camaraderie and shared burdens. The visitor's voice trembles with urgency. "Our village is suffering from drought, and crops are failing. Will you help us with some water?" Mara listens intently, empathy in his eyes. "Certainly, brother. It is here for all the king's subjects to take. Tomorrow, I will come with you." His words promise hope amidst the despair of the visitor's plight. Mara turns his gaze towards the lake, noticing the water muddying, a signal of the impending storm. "Do you see that? The heart of the lake is changing," he exclaims, pointing toward the dark clouds gathering in the distance. "I must keep an eye on her tonight." His voice holds a mixture of concern and vigilance as nature's unpredictability looms. In the dead of night, a torrential downpour lashed against the walls of the king's palace. The air was thick with the sounds of a raging storm. Thunder boomed overhead while flashes of lightning illuminated the grand architecture. The relentless ringing of a bell at the palace gate echoed through the halls, its sound urgent and insistent. Inside, the king paced anxiously, his regal attire now dampened by the storm, worry etched across his face as he pondered who could be summoning him on such a dreadful night. The king's heart raced as he called for one of his attendants. "Who is it that disturbs me at this hour?" he demanded, his voice a mix of authority and concern. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows and making the torches flicker ominously. As the attendant hurried away to discover the source of the commotion, the king couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the storm, drenched and breathless. It was Mara, the watchman of the lake, his clothes clinging to his skin and his hair plastered to his face. As he stumbled toward the palace gate, he gasped for breath, battling the roaring winds that threatened to pull him back. "Your Majesty," he shouted, struggling to be heard over the storm. "I bring urgent news." The king's brow furrowed in concern. He had not seen Mara in such a state before. Inside the palace, Mara stood before the king, trembling and soaked to the bone. "Forgive me for intruding, Your Majesty," he said, his voice shaking. "I come with grave news about the lake." The king's eyes widened, his heart pounding as he sensed the weight of Mara's words. "What has happened?" he asked urgently, leaning closer, captivated by the watchman's fearful demeanor. Mara hesitated, fear creeping into his voice as he struggled to articulate the terrifying revelation. Mara's voice trembled as he recounted his encounter with the goddess of the lake. "I saw her," he began, his eyes widening in fear. "Her hair was wild, her eyes gleaming with a fierce light. She stood before me, wielding a sword, and she spoke with a voice that shook my very soul." The atmosphere in the room thickened with tension as the king listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to disbelief at the gravity of Mara's revelation. The king's mind raced as he processed Mara's alarming news. "Are you certain?" he pressed, a mix of dread and disbelief in his voice. Mara, desperate to convey the truth, implored, "May my family perish if I lie, your majesty." The king's face paled as he considered the implications. The thought of the lake unleashing its fury upon the kingdom sent a shiver down his spine. "What are we to do?" he asked, fear creeping into his voice as he realized the impending danger. With urgency flooding his veins, the king made a swift decision. "We must prepare for the worst," he commanded, his voice booming with authority. "Sound the alarms! Inform the people that the deluge is upon us!" His attendants scrambled to obey, the palace erupting into a flurry of activity as they rushed to alert the kingdom. Outside, the storm raged on, the winds howling as if echoing the king's fears. In the midst of the chaos, Mara made a heart-wrenching request. "If it will save my people, I am willing to sacrifice myself," he stated firmly. The king looked at Mara, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision. "You would do this for your family and your village?" he asked, disbelief lacing his words. Mara nodded, resolute, knowing that the stakes were high. "Let my son inherit my duty as the Watchman of the Lake," he implored. The king, torn between duty and compassion, faced a choice that would determine the fate of many. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the vast lake, a serene shrine stood proudly by the water's edge. Its stone structure was adorned with intricate carvings, telling tales of the past. On the top pedestal, the statue of the guardian goddess, draped in flowing robes, radiated an aura of serenity. Below, the likeness of Ganga's father held a dignified posture, a reminder of the legacy of guardianship over this sacred place. The gentle ripples of the lake mirrored the sky, and gulls soared gracefully above, their cries mingling with the soft rustle of leaves in the warm evening breeze. Ganga, the watchman of the lake, stood near the shrine, his expression a blend of concern and authority. He called out to his son, his voice echoing across the tranquil waters. "Son, come here!" His tone was firm, but carried a hint of warmth, reflecting the love and responsibility he felt. As his son, a bright-eyed boy of 8, hurried towards him, Ganga couldn't help but feel a sense of duty pressing upon him. "Where were you all this time?" he asked, knowing well the distractions that lay beyond the shrine. The boy, with his face lit up by wonder, replied, "I was watching the gulls flying over the lake, father. How they skim and catch the fish. It's lovely to watch." His eyes sparkled with excitement, the innocence of childhood evident in his tone. Ganga, though pleased by his son's enthusiasm for nature, felt a pang of disappointment. This was the hour of worship, a sacred time that demanded respect. He reminded his son gently but firmly, "Didn't you know this was the hour of worship at the shrine?" Ganga's expression turned serious as he emphasized the importance of their duties. "Don't forget again. I will be very angry if you miss another worship. You are old enough to realize your responsibilities." He shared a piece of his past, recounting how he took over his father's duties at a young age, left to navigate the stormy waters of fate alone. "The last I saw of my father was when I went to bed," he recalled, his voice heavy with the weight of memory. "When I woke up, the lake was nearly rolling over the shore." Ganga continued to share the tale of that fateful day when the king had come to him, the gravity of the moment etched into his mind. "By the king's order, worship is performed on the evenings of every Tuesday and Friday. You must not miss a single one henceforth." His words were imbued with a sense of legacy, the responsibility now resting on the boy's shoulders. "When I am gone, you must watch over this lake. After you, your son," Ganga declared, a look of determination in his eyes, passing down the mantle of guardianship to the next generation. As Ganga and his son prepared to enter the shrine, the ringing of temple bells filled the air, a sound resonating with devotion and reverence. The warm glow of candles illuminated the shrine, casting flickering shadows that danced along the walls. Ganga led his son inside, both feeling the weight of their lineage and the sacredness of the moment. "Come into the shrine and see the worship," he urged, a soft smile breaking through his serious demeanor, signaling the importance of this ritual in honoring their ancestors and the goddess of the lake.